Welcome. I'm Sister Who. With me today I have Egan Sanders, who is a life coach and counselor.
Yes.
And there's a lot of different ideas being thrown out around in the general public at the moment about how to view or live life and so forth. Most of the time, when I hear someone talk about the law of attraction, I bristle and resist because I really don't like the negative implications that are coming from it. And it makes me wonder if, in this case, as with every idea, you can either constructively use an idea or you can abuse an idea. Within Christian history, or the history of the Christian religion, this is where I would probably, obviously be on the one side in the argument about predestination, whether there's such a thing as negative predestination, people predestined for hell, or, with attraction. Did you attract that car accident to you? Did you make that terrible thing happen to you? On one hand, I think within oneself, it's a legitimate question to ask, did I contribute to this in any way? But to ask it from a neutral, centered, open, honest place. I don't think it's something that should be put upon someone by someone else, though. Kind of like in the story of Job in the Bible. Horrible stuff happens to him. He winds up sitting in a pile of ashes outside the city with sores all over his body. And his three friends come to comfort him, console him, something. And all they do is spend their time saying, you must have done something horrible to deserve this. Condemning him, belittling him, devaluing him. And I've seen people do this with the, quote, law of attraction also. I think it's a dynamic that can be used constructively. But of course it can also be abused, where someone using it to condemn someone. You brought this on yourself, instead of being a person of compassion and offering consolation or help or something. You mentioned in one of our other conversations about some woman who was preaching the law of attraction, and you mentioned something about unfortunate people or something, and she said it's not my problem?
Yeah, this was an actual radio show host, and we were talking about the law of attraction, and we got into discussion about ecology, and I talked about some work I was doing at a food bank, and we talked about several things, and her whole thing is, don't focus on that. That has nothing to do with me. The economy is fine where I'm at. And so, as far as concerned with any other human being, it's not relevant to me. So on the one hand, I said, well, on one level, that is true, like you're not responsible for other people, but the other truth is, people are suffering. So if we're interconnected, you can do something, you don't have to do something, but don't deny. So I find that with some of the law of attraction, people are like, don't look at the negative, ignore it, deny it. Instead of acknowledge it, it doesn't mean you have to experience it, it doesn't mean you have to become part of that example. You can still be an alternative, but she was condemning it. And that's what you're getting to is, in the Job story, he was basically being judged. He was being evaluated and criticized, saying, you must have done something, Job, you must have done something bad. And instead of saying, well, what else could this mean? Is there maybe some other thing that's at work that we don't understand? Is there something that's higher than what we think of? So
often when I hear somebody say, well, they brought that on themselves, it's not that they're trying to analyze what really happened. They're trying to dismiss it from their realm of concern.
Well, the idea is this.
Am I my brother's keeper? Like Cain and Abel.
Here's a distinction. This is what I hear a lot. The idea is that what you put out is what you get back. Okay, and this I believe in. But typically when something bad happens, people think karma, and they think, well, if something bad happened to you, therefore, ergo, you must have done something bad to somebody else in a past life or another existence, and that's why that's happening. So that's one thing. However, if something bad happens to you, You just may have chosen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. You may have very good karma, but for some reason, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or, as it happened to me, I'd hang out with questionable characters, and because I was with them, I would get caught up in their reality because I made bad decisions. So I'd make bad choices. I was a good person. I made bad choices, and therefore I had to pay for those choices. But if you remove the idea of judgment and simply saying, well, you're exploring something, you're experiencing something, it's neutral, you don't have to consider yourself a sinner or a bad person. You can question.
Well, like Job.
Like Job, he questioned.
He didn't do anything wrong.
Right. He was simply there. Those things happened. In the end, it worked out okay. But if somebody was judging him, they could have made all sorts of reasons why that was happening.
Yeah, but if you looked at, they would have had to project something onto him, because he wasn't hanging around with the wrong sorts of people. He wasn't doing anything. I mean, there was no explanation whatsoever. It was something that simply happened. But if life is about the growth of the soul, it doesn't really matter so much what it is. What matters is what you get out of it.